All right, so we made it to the last session, and we still got some people here, which is good. We are going to be talking about multi-screen services, especially emphasizing on live sports. I think we kind of all know why we're here. The great expansion of devices or IP-connected devices that are out there in the market continues to grow and will continue to grow. But also the network coverage, or the ability to be able to distribute content on a fairly high quality, pretty much anywhere these devices go, is also growing. You know, the rollout of LTE networks and the move from 3G to 4G really allowing, the content to be consumed anywhere. And then, of course, also just the fact that consumers want it, right? So there's a great demand for this content out there in the world with the users. Today we're gonna touch on a few different things: live streaming in general, why sports, why this presentation specifically focuses on sports, and a couple of the business models around multi-screen and how to distribute this content and monetize it. Also, there's a number of challenges that we'll touch on. I mean, I think over the last 2 days and throughout the different sessions that you've been to, you've heard technical challenges, you've heard about business model challenges, you've heard about content rights. We're going to continue to touch on that and just hit that home. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the technology, again, some things that we've heard throughout the different sessions that's coming up to help in multi-screen, and specifically driven towards sports and consumption in venues. And lastly, we'll open it up for some discussion on this topic or anything that might correlate to what we're talking about here. So I'm Michael Martinez. I'm with Quick Play Media. I actually work out of our US office, but the company is headquartered out of Toronto, Canada. We specialize in providing premium content to all IP-connected devices. We do it for a large number of North American customers, but we also do have global reach with sales offices out of Paris as well as Singapore. So we're trying to make that move from the North America markets, where we've been very, very successful with customers like AT&T, Bell, Rogers, delivering over-the-top and multi-screen services into Europe. We also directly work with a number of the OEMs out there, as well as directly with content providers to help get their content into our platform and ultimately distributed for themselves or other operators. The big thing that we deal with is content. We don't own any of the rights, but we do it on our customers' behalf. And if you look at some of these high-level content providers that are up here on the list, you'll notice that a lot of them are live sports centric. So the brands that are highlighted here are either sports networks, or they are content providers that carry live games as part of their core TV offering. Quick Play, we move a lot of content. We have integrations with about 4,000 content providers. That includes everything from audio services to all of the metadata associated, so third-party metadata sources, as well as the metadata that comes in with the content. But really what I want to highlight there is the amount of live that we do. We do about 250 live linear channels today. By August, we'll be doing 400. So we have a large expansion with a couple of existing customers, providing a larger number of linear channels as the move goes from catch-up TV to more live traditional offerings over the top or across all the multi-screen platforms. The other notable thing there is the 300 plus live events. So these 300 live events that we operate are everything from MLB games to NHL games to sport concerts or live news, and this is all operated off of Quick Play's backend. So we do move a lot of this content. We're a big bandwidth consumer in the CDN space, especially in North America and Asia. So there's lots we can talk about as far as generating these multi-screen services. Look at some numbers here. This is US based, but if you kind of look at this graph going from 2008 to 2012, that light blue color at the bottom is live TV consumed. Now granted, that's across all platforms, but you can see that there is a lot of live content consumed. So as much as we like to believe that what we're doing with VOD and catch-up TV is what consumers want, there's clearly live TV is still a main consumption per day per person. Moving on to kind of how the market is shifting. So if we look at this study, looking at it year-to-year difference between time-shifted content or the catch-up TV services to watching mobile content on mobile or watching video on mobile devices. You see that it is growing at much larger pace than the time-shifted content that we have been so used to providing and the consumers accessing. Now we'll look at some UK consumption numbers. So this is based on kind of different age demographics, but it's a 2-year comparison, 2011 to 2012. You see the average amount of content that is consumed. Again, this is across all platforms, but it's important to note that live TV is something that is very, very heavily consumed. So we need to continue to roll out the services to bring this to the user exactly what they're looking for. Another look at it is to show kind of growth from 2008 to 2012 is the catch-up TV provided by via the internet, the TV streaming via the internet, and then TV streaming on mobile. The mobile in red, if you see between 2008 and 2011, stays pretty consistent. But all of a sudden, you take services like what the BBC did for the Olympics, where you start showing the customer that there's live content, and you drive them into these applications. All of a sudden, you start seeing that there's a greater demand for it. So if you start seeing what's happening in 2012, you can only imagine what happens in 2013. And as the data on the networks is showing, the growth is just going to continue to come. Now, I think the shift that we see here is maybe we're not going to take away from the catch-up TV service, but it's going to be taking away the live TV from the primary screen and moving it into the multi-screen environment. So why sports? Well, we choose sports for one very big reason. It's a very high-valued asset, and when you're providing these services, we know that multi-screen's expensive. You have to find a way to monetize it. So you need to kind of go in with a slam dunk, and the slam dunk is sports. If you put the sports out there, they're going to consume it. Whereas if I pick some of my other linear channels and I move them into the IP delivery space, some could be successful, some could not, but it's just not really a risk you want to do until it's a completely proven market with that type of asset. If we look at some of the numbers here, the BBC, for example, 12 million views requested on mobile and tablets during the Olympics. Well, that's 12 million is a pretty good number to go after. And again, that's live content that they brought to the table. And they also brought it across all the screens. So having the applications available to consume that with a marketing push to explain, hey, look, there's a different way to consume content than just your primary screen. Or maybe there's a better channel offering or better availability over the IP than there is on your traditional screens. A couple other statistics around the Olympics, but the next one down, which is really interesting, 84% of those who had watched either the Olympics or the World Cup on smartphones or tablets reported sustained increase in mobile viewing. So all of a sudden they knew that there was this delivery method. They saw that it worked very, very well, and maybe they had even a better experience than they were expecting, and they were driven back there. They now know, hey, I'm going to go look for other services that are like this, or I'm going to go look for other content that I can consume, across other devices than sitting down on my couch in front of my main screen. So what are the opportunities here? Well, we just touched on some of the reasons why we're getting, or how we're getting folks there, but really the opportunity is there's more of these devices coming out there. We used to just focus on getting one set-top box out in the home, then it was two, then it was get DVR out there. Well, the number of devices that are being generated, IP-connected devices that are being generated, is at a much higher, hockey curve up to be able to get to that audience where they are. And so if you kind of look at this number here, 4.5 connected devices in each UK home by 2017. I would say at the pace that we're going, and just with the folks in this room, we probably all have close to 2 or 3 devices with us currently. And then imagine you start adding on the other household members on there, you start to see there's a lot of connected devices we got to go after. And of course, I talked about it right at the beginning, the network speeds are getting there. We also have some technologies that are coming along with us. We have HEVC coming, so that really we can start to get higher quality at lower bit rates, or what's going to ultimately happen is, because the devices are coming out with higher resolution screens, we're going to be delivering higher higher quality images at probably the same bit rates that we're delivering today. But there's a couple different things all moving in parallel. These devices we've got to get to, the consumers wanting to consume on these devices because we've shown them it's possible, and then also just the portability of being able to consume content where I want. One of the important things to think about with sports is, we have a lot more opportunity in the application-based world. We can change the experience or we can enhance the experience, whereas with your traditional delivery methods, that just isn't there. You're pretty much stuck to the framework that's deployed by your set-top boxes. So what we've seen is, and we have a number of providers that we're working with and a number of content providers in the live space. One here that I have some images of is iZod IndyCar. So what we do is we send a satellite truck out to every race. We bring in all those feeds. We do full master control on them. We deliver a unique mobile experience. So in the US, ABC and ESPN, all the big rights holders of the primary screen delivery still deliver to those screens. But what we're doing is creating a unique mobile experience. And what we found is we are driving consumption based on the experience. So by the fact that we put the user in control, we give them some mosaics that are a lot more like the set-top box delivery where you can have some interaction. We're giving the real-time driver statistics. It drives use of the app not only as a standalone because I can't make it to the event or I can't make it to my primary screen, but it's also driving usage in venue because now there's a lot more statistics that are available, or even a secondary screen experience because now I really feel like I'm in the pits. I know what speed every driver's going, what set of tires they have on their car. I can listen to each of the race channels, so I can listen to my favorite driver's team, hear what's happening in the pits. So we're starting to see all these different kind of convergence of a single piece of content, but consumed in many different ways. And that all boils back down to how do we control the experience for multi-screen, but making that same experience work across any device that they choose, because all of a sudden they've gone from their smartphone to their tablet, they're going from their tablet to a PC. You have to make that experience constant. And that's what's key to multi-screen. And you can look at someone like Netflix, they've figured this out. Let's not go over and above with features out of the get-go. Let's give a common experience, so no matter what I pick up or where I pick it up, I know how to use it. It's not a misunderstanding in marketing, but at the same time, it's rich enough, right? So one of the other big providers that we do work for, this is an IPTV provider in North America. They have found a way to kind of offer it in a number of different ways. I'll touch on it in a minute on the business case slide or business model slide, but they have a subscription-based TV Everywhere subscription. So I'm an IPTV customer. I can go into their application with those credentials, and I can get to all my content that I'm paying for based on the entitlement rules that are in their billing system. So that gets me access to the baseball, the hockey, the soccer, the football. But they also wanted to get across to all their customers. So maybe they have folks that aren't necessarily in their IPTV footprint, but they are a wireless subscriber of this particular provider. Same application, they can now go in and they can add on the subscription-based mobile video service. And so they can buy it based on package. So I can say, hey, I just want the baseball package, I just want the hockey package. Or they've come up with a unique kind of a la carte where I actually am buying data, and that data directly translates to kind of a consumption of video, so a number of hours or minutes of video. So it's really unique how they've done the multi-screen, because they've taken care of their existing customer base that's already paying for the content rights, but they're also branching into new markets with the subscription-based model. And then, of course, that offers all sorts of upsell into more premium packages or other content programming packages. Looking at some Canadian information, like I said, we travel the world at Quick Play as a managed service company, so I think it's interesting to pull up the different statistics from different places. But the North American operator that I just showed, it's kind of, you build it, they will come. If you look at this chart here from 2011 to 2012, you see a 21-point jump in consumption on mobile. So they put this service offering out there. They made it very rich with, they started with sports content, then they moved in some of their other primary linear channels, such as news, and then they went into entertainment packages. And then all of a sudden they started to see, hey, we're getting some real traction with these multi-screen services. And it's evident by this kind of graph here. A 21-point growth in a year is nothing to shake a stick at, especially when it comes to adoption of a new delivery method. We have another Asian customer. We're seeing pretty extensive growth with them, and it's all centered around live. They were doing this as a completely defensive play in the market because they had a lot of piracy going on, so they felt they needed to get out there with an offering that competed. As all of us know, didn't really think that this was going to be a new cash stream for them or revenue opportunity initially. It was purely to make sure that they were taking away from the pirate activity that was in the marketplace. Within about 12 months, they're seeing high returns, and this is a purely ad-driven multi-screen solution. So they've gone in. They have about 3 live channels that are constant with 5 special events channels. And those special events channels are there for sports, and they're there for breaking news. But I can tell you that their consumptions per month, their consumptions per day, are in the hundreds of thousands just on the live content, serving some tens of million ad inserts. So it's another model to be looked at. As I showed earlier on in the presentation, the number of devices continues to ramp, the IP connected devices. But the interesting fact is if you own one of these, whether it's Android or Windows or BlackBerry, you're more likely to own another connected device, probably a tablet, something in the middle of the road, and then of course you start getting into laptops and things like that. Again, you look at the feature phone subscribers to the smartphone subscribers. I mean, we all know that there isn't really a road for feature phones anymore. It's all smartphones. It's all Android-based iOS devices that are taking a majority of the uptake out there. The other interesting thing to look at is kind of in day parts. So we know that people consume a lot of live content per person per day, but where are they consuming that? And so if we kind of look at the day, starting on the left as we move to end of day all the way on the right, you see this increased bubble kind of time during the prime time window. So that's the appointment TV. So as much as we think that the catch-up TV and the VOD catalogs are solving a lot of the problems or exactly what the customers want, at the end of the day, folks are still tuning in. What are they tuning in for? Primarily it's the live sporting events that are happening during those day parts. Why? Because that's a high-value asset that immediately loses value. The VOD or the catch-up TV services, I'm less likely to spoil that TVOD show for you than I am to spoil the score of the game or the match, right? So that window of opportunity, is still very appointment-driven. And what we also see is, a majority of this is done at home. The interesting part to multi-screen in the home is we know that there's a number of other connected devices there that have an opportunity to consume. If the primary screen is occupied, those users are absolutely going to move to one of the other screens in their house. It might not necessarily be linked to the primary TV subscription. It might be a multi-screen or TV everywhere solution provided by a Netflix or a Hulu, another service provider. But the whole key is, people are still consuming, and they're still consuming in day parts, right? Look at some of the business models that drive multi-screen. Obviously, there's bundling. I talked about one of the customers we have that is created a TV everywhere, but they also fall into another category, which is the standalone subscription-based. They were getting it to their wireless subs, creating new packages. And then, really the third one is ad-funded. Of course, there's a mixture to all of these. You could obviously extend the monetization of a subscription-based service by adding in advertising, whether targeted or national or regional breaks based on the content. But I don't think that there's any one right way to deliver it right now. It's really market by market, region by region, content by content. We see folks generating ad-funded sponsorship applications around sports. So they've gone out there and they've they've created a unique experience for soccer, for example, but they've gone out to a major partner to help fund the delivery and the building of this model. Multiscreen, especially centered around live, I mean, we've spent a lot of time just getting the VOD caught up to speed and getting it delivered out to consumers across multiple IP connected devices. Live adds significant more complexity. I watched a presentation from the BBC yesterday. They showed some of the diagrams of just how they were delivering that content. It's very complicated, not only to ensure the delivery out to the users, but also to add that level of redundancy, because the user, if they're going to move from the primary screen to any of the other screens that are out there, they have no idea how it works, and they have an expectation that it's going to be a similar or the same experience as they're used to getting. And if they're not getting it, they're going to go find somewhere else that's better or more sustainable. But beyond just the technical side of live, we have the content rights game. Live sports especially, the rights are chopped up and separated far more than any other piece of content. Not only just the programming between what screen it's available on in its entirety of the piece of content, but also actual segments. So in the US and Canada, we have an interesting case where there'll be highlights during the sports program at the end of the night, giving highlights of all the different sports that have gone on through the day. And we actually have to black out segments of those shows where those rights are not available for mobile or for tablet or for online. And we actually have to do it based on the device type and the stream type. So if they're streaming over Wi-Fi, we can do it. But if they're streaming over 3G or 4G, it has to be blacked out. So these rights are getting very, very complicated, and sports with not only just blackouts based on recorded content or VOD content, it's also with sports during that live event, the blackout restrictions around venue or at venue or what is available within certain radiuses becomes very complicated with IP delivery because these devices could be anywhere. So that's a very important thing that has to be taken into account for everything that we try to distribute. With the Olympics in Canada, we actually we were the provider that provided to all the different operators up there. So we had direct connections into the Olympic Games. We had 24 live feeds that were coming to us. Different operators, they all had the same rights, but all chose to implement them differently. Some did time delay, so that the primary events were seen at the primary times. Some did actual live, so you could go watch the event or game as it was happening. This added a whole nother level of complexity when we were doing multi-tenancy. So we were bringing these feeds in one time, redistributing to multiple operators, and then the entitlement and rights based on how the operator was implementing it for their customers was just kind of a nightmare to manage. The next one is obviously the authentication. This speaks to a couple different parts. This can be if I'm a content provider and I'm doing kind of a syndicated model or syndicated player out to other operators. Do I want to own that customer? Do I need to tie into another billing system or authentication and just give entitlement records back? It also plays into the DRM and rights management of that content. So those kind of two go hand in hand with each other, because how do you manage who owns the customer and who owns the entitlement pieces of that? Cost, we kind of went over that. It's expensive to do multi-screen services, and most of that has to do with the fragmentation in the market. I got to create a different stream for each platform. I need multiple bit rates of each of those pieces of content. Am I implementing a live to VOD feature? Am I doing a cloud DVR? I need to have storage to back up all of my live streams. The user experience. The user experience really comes down to money. What platforms am I going to target with my multi-screen service? So am I going to go after consoles? Am I going to go after smart TVs? Am I going to go after all of the, am I going to go after hero devices? So, the top Android and iOS devices, or am I going to go across the entire device category? Is my user experience going to be throwaway? You know, am I going to be ready to manage all of these platforms moving forward long term? Or is it event specific? Am I going to make an event specific application? And then picking the right business model or picking multiple pieces of a business model to deploy the service under. So just kind of looking right here at data, everyone's been talking about this. The amount of video traffic that's out there across the CDNs and just across the internet continues to grow. So we're going to need to do something about it to curb those numbers, because at some point that we can only keep reinvesting in capital to deploy better and bigger edge and delivery systems. At some point we got to fix some stuff on ahead of it actually getting delivered. And that actually brings us to obviously Dash. Dash doesn't really solve your delivery problems, but it does allow for different packaging. So now I can start to have kind of one packaging method instead of all of these separate ones, which allows for easier transport and management of the number of streams. HEVC, okay, obviously drops in time, not immediately, because we know that there's definitely some technical limitations to it that haven't all been worked out, as well as on the device side, we can't just keep doing it in software because that has adverse effects on the user experience. So we need to get everything caught up there, but ultimately that'll should drive traffic down because you know, hopefully you get the same quality for lower bit rates. But one of the more interesting ones is broadcast over LTE. So now we're going full circle. We started with broadcast, then we found ways to deliver outside of broadcast, and now we're kind of going back. How do we move from that unicast environment back to sort of a multicast environment? eMBMS is developed by Qualcomm. Again, they're one of the largest chip manufacturers out there. They're in a majority of the smart devices that we use every day. But eMBMS is interesting because it actually allows control for the operators. So the telco operators, to control their newly deployed LTE networks, they can allocate some of their bandwidth or spectrum to actual broadcast instead of just data transmission. This is very, very compelling, especially when you talk about in-venue, where you have large masses of people that are trying to consume content. Maybe they want extra camera angles. Maybe they're just trying to get scores from other games. They're consuming content in a very densely populated area. And so the ability for a network provider to sit there and go, okay, well, everybody's trying to tune into this stream, or everybody's trying to watch this particular event. Let's allocate a meg, 800K, to this event, and a seamless transition on the handset would occur for them to be able to be consuming. The user ultimately wouldn't really see a change there. So I mean that's more on delivery. They all touch on delivery, but that's kind of looking at you know, actual distribution in a completely different way than we're focusing on it today. Another statistical slide is the likelihood of using a live or live linear pay TV service on IP-connected devices. If you look at, it goes from 1 on the left to 7 definitely would use it. If you look at 7, 6, 5, you're at about 90% of folks say that they would pay for a live or live linear TV service to be able to get their content wherever they are or wherever that connected device might be. So I mean, you know, 5 being sure and 7 being 50%. Obviously, folks want it. They don't exactly understand all the technical or rights reasons why we can't deliver it today. But you know, you go out there and you pull them, they do want it. Then of course, the one thing that we're always worried about as content providers or service providers is we sit and we look at, you know, what keeps our customers. And if you kind of look at what's out there, you know, everybody's rushed to catch up and all deliver some sort of catch-up TV, VOD service, as well as there's a number of complete multi-service providers out there. But if you look at what they're driving towards, if my buddy has live TV or my family member has live linear TV everywhere they go, it might be a big reason why I would switch over to what they've got. And so that's also important to see. 5, 6, 7, you know, definite drivers for folks switching from one service provider to another. You know, in summary of this, the high demand for live multi-screen is definitely there. I think the easy win is all around sports. Obviously, we know if we put it out there, you know, these events have such marketing and such mass appeal, and nobody wants to be left out of, you know, the water cooler discussions. So those are obviously the first ones to get out there, but all that does is build upon providing other services, other linear services to back those up. You start rolling them out in groups of 20 or 30, which is the typical rollout that we've seen. We do have a customer right now that's in Asia that's getting ready to release nearly their entire channel lineup in the TV Everywhere space. And that's actually going to be a completely siloed service offering from their core TV. So they're not even doing it as an extension. They're doing it as actually, hey, bring your own device, and you can pay for a subscription on any of them. Obviously, some business challenges. We need to figure out the rights. We got to figure out the model that actually pays for all of this technical work to be delivered out there. And then, of course, we need to figure out the technology long term. It's great if we get mass adoption, but what happens when the mass adoption is so much that we can't sustain it? So we need to be looking forward. It sounds from a number of the sessions that I was sitting in, you know, folks are thinking about it, but it's one thing to think, it's another to do. We've got to come up with a plan. And then, of course, everything's moving really fast, so you need to pick what you're going to go after and when you're going to go after it. What's the best time for your business? And you know, my last statement kind of there at the end. True multi-screen is the seamless experience no matter where you are or what device you're on, because people don't care. They just know I want to consume something, and whoever's offering it is the company I'm going to get behind, right? And that's we've learned that. So yeah, we'll open it up to questions or discussion, or you can get time back and be on with your day. Good? All right, thank you.